Welcome to the settlement. I'm Fen, and this is a review and an overview of the Wanderer Goth, who is the second Wanderer to arrive on the simulator. There's a bunch that have come out in physical. We can assume all of them are going to get on the simulator at some time or another. I did see in one of the previous videos that the miniatures for Candy and the Death Drifter have been imported. They ended up in my cabinet by accident, so we can assume we'll be seeing them. But as it stands, we just currently have Goth here. I've done a written review of the physical components on the Patreon, link in the description. If you like what I do, comment, subscribe, likes, but more than anything else, support by the Patreon helps keep these going. And speaking of which, the next two videos which are coming out this month are going to be on the Smog Singers. One of them is going to be the Dark Bestiary for the Smog Singers. That'll be edited as supported by my zoologists and archivist patrons. Again, very much appreciate all of you and the Pillar patrons who support these videos as well. Couldn't do it without you. I don't know the order that they're going to be in. It depends really on scheduling the editing and recording all those bits and pieces. I think the Colosseum's probably going to come out first, because that one isn't going to be edited. It's just going to be me talking, and then I just stick a soundtrack underneath it and shove it onto YouTube, because I can't edit my own stuff, because it's just, I can't do it. Anyway, let's get to Goth. So, Wanderers are additional survivors that are set up at the start of the campaign, and they will join your settlement in a given lantern year, and then they have a story that takes place. Goth originally was Goth Amy. She is a crossover from the Zombicide board game, which was published by Simon. Call me or not. I'm not sure what the state is with that now. They've been going through some rough times, so who knows with the license. I'm just surprised that, given that she is a card from another property, that she's made it onto the simulator, which is pretty cool. But before we get into all the details, let's open this up and take a look at what you get. So here we are. This is everything. If we just zoom out for a second, you can see it all. There is a fighting art, a set of knowledges, 2 rare gear, 2 innovations, and a book. We're going to just first of all take a little look at the model. So this is Goth, aka Goth Amy, and in addition to being from Zombicide, she's also thought to be a reference to Paulie Perrette's character from NCIS. The character Abby Scuto. I don't watch NCIS, so I don't know how her surname is pronounced. That's from the designer notes in Zombicide. So we've got a real world influence crossover from another game, so, you know, several times removed. This is a pretty sweet miniature. It's really dynamic. Goth here is swinging a katana and cracking open some stone heads, revealing the little brains inside. These are all, like, if we just get a little bit closer, you can see they have zombified elements to them, all in tribute, and it's not particularly out of universe for them to be sort of zombie-ish. We don't have de facto zombies, but we know that there are some sort of analogues, like with the Oblivion Mosquito and the Faceless. So regardless, it's a nice way of showing tribute to the game it's come from, while also keeping that Kingdom Death flavour in. She's got a little bag, like she has a backpack on her Zombicide model, lantern, choker, katana. So that's the choker of the katana, her specific pieces of gear. It's a nice model. I've not got around to painting it yet, not because anything to do with the model, more to do with the content, but we'll get onto that. So We'll start up here with just a general kind of, this is how Wanderers work. So you also get a divider. I will note one thing is Luck doesn't have a divider. You don't always get dividers for the knowledges either. And I could really have done with a divider physically for Wanderer gear, just Wanderer gear. They all get stuck in the rare gear section, and that's like a massive pile of stuff now that is getting more and more difficult to organise. Not so much of an issue here because you've got the lovely little search tool that grabs most things you want, but yeah, it's physically that is one problem. I really need more dividers, and you can't easily make custom dividers that match the Kingdom Death ones because of their size is a little bit proprietary, especially with the knowledges. So not really a solution to that yet, but whatever. You also get some record sheets specifically for her, which I haven't grabbed. I think it put them on the shelf automatically. I'm going to see if I can grab them before we get into the rest. Okay, you can just see it to the side. I've grabbed it in case it's needed. In the case of the simulator, you just still have the one infinite pad, which is nice. So they won't get extras on there. I do find myself hoping when they release these that they'll give you a Wanderer specific record sheet, but they kind of tend to give a bit more of a generic one. But anyway, we'll go to the sheet if we need to. It's there now. So as you see, Goth, you write her on the timeline if you can add us to the campaign, and she goes on in Lantern Year 4, which means she turns up a lot earlier than Luck, who's the other Wanderer we have on the simulator. Luck's kind of a bit useless. He's not bad, but once I'm up in like 20 Lantern Years in a campaign, I'm not really interested in benching one of my 4 survivors in exchange for a Wanderer, because except to explore his story once, it's just kind of one of those things that a settlement near the beginning really benefits from Wanderers, and towards the end kind of just doesn't care so much about them. But we'll talk a little bit about that. Goth is an Arc survivor. She does have Art survivor rules as well. That's like fighting Art survivors. She arrives with 1 survival, 4 insanity, and then she's got -1 evasion, 1 speed, 1 courage, 2 lumi, and the currency used to buy knowledges, and 1 torment. I do like this that they brought in, using a little staircase to represent permanent increases and decreases for stats and tributes. That's great. She has this thing called disposition, and you get +1 when she joins if you don't have the cannibalized death principle. We're going to talk more on principles a little bit later. Disposition is something that I would have liked to have seen on the specific Arc survivor sheets. We don't have that. It's not a big deal, but it's kind of like this space is a bit constrained on these character sheets, and having to add more things to record extra tracks, and disposition goes up and down. It's just another thing you have to put on and record. A lot easier if you're using third-party digital clients to track your settlement or similar. But yeah, not having it, and they had the opportunity to make Wanderer sheets specifically for the simulator. That would have been nice if they'd at least done that. Maybe they will in the future, who knows. Goth has her own special courage and understanding milestones. At 3 courage she gets +1 speed. At 3 understanding she suffers -1 disposition, so she starts to dislike the place rather than like being in the settlement. Max courage, +1 strength, and maximum understanding triggers Goth fallout. We'll look at that as we go through the ranks. Outsiders, so she doesn't get newborn survivor benefits. That makes sense. The survivor of the fittest won't help her. Veteran and Revenant. Veteran, all Wanderers so far have Veteran. It basically adds 1 to their Hunt XP so that they develop faster. Given you're getting Goth in Lantern Year 4, that's basically a doubling of the speed that she's going to be leveling up until you move to level 2 monsters and similar. The Revenant ability is unique to Goth. This is a big part of her entire design. If she would die, she gains +1 understanding and inexplicably survives. There are some cards that care about inexplicable surviving, so do want to track whenever a survivor inexplicably survives, she offers a way of doing that. She archives all the tokens, erases all the filled injury boxes, heals all permanent injuries, and then she goes straight, like if she inexplicably survives again a second time in the Lantern Years, she'll leave the showdown board and get -1 disposition. So that means as she dies, first time in the showdown, she'll just come back. And then the second time, it'll stick, but she won't actually die. She'll suffer a disposition. The penalty for that is the gain of understanding. Understanding for Goth is not great. But yeah. She comes with a common katana and a rapture bracelet. We'll look at those in a moment, or later on. Then this stuff here is standard, kind of going through the rules for Ark survivors. We're not going to go through that here. Same over here. Rotter neurosis. We'll look at that in a moment, but the neuroses are negatives. And then her knowledge is adrenaline. Again, we'll look at that separately. And adrenaline is added to the settlement's knowledge pool. So this is something you do want to pay attention to. The knowledge deck is like the innovation deck in that it is crafted and enhanced and grows over time as more and more knowledge gets added to it. But unlike the innovation deck, once a card is in there, it is almost never removed. The starting knowledges can get removed at your choice at a certain point, and they almost certainly should be. But once you add a knowledge to the deck, it is in there, and you're going to have to live with it being in there. So each Wanderer adds further to that. A larger deck means less certainty on what you're going to get each year when you find out which knowledges are available. You can use her in a non-Ark Survivor campaign. We'll take a look at that. She can only have one fighting art and one secret fighting art, same as Ark Survivors. And she still suffers Vaultless for additionals. There is also this separate rule, which is if she gains a fighting art, then you either get it, and the limit of 3 normally applies. But if you do that, you have to have +3 systemic pressure, which is basically +3 or -3 to your injury rolls. So, a roll of a 4 would now be a roll of a 1, which is death. So she's a little bit more resistant to systemic pressure than most, but not. You don't really want to be killing her in the showdown. So yeah, we'll look at that, but it's locking her into one fighting art, one secret fighting art. And if you're playing without philosophies and knowledges, you do the option to get more, but it is a pretty heavy price you have to pay. So, her introduction, I'm not going to go through these in detail, but it's worth noting that if somehow you have pottery innovated by this time, which is unlikely but possible, you can get this little extra bonus here. Really neat thing, once we start going through all of this, is here. So her whole philosophy is called disintegration, and it's a reference to her coming from Zombicide and suffering from this radioactive decay that has made her kind of immortal, but not really, because she's gradually falling apart. It's also the name of a Cure album, and that is absolutely a reference, because If I Could Only Fill My Heart, Fear in the Gathering Gloom, Pictures of You, Fallout, these are like references to Cure song. Pictures of You is one of my favourite Cure songs. So when I saw that, I was like, no way, that's really cool. It's a nice bit of just extra flavour with pop culture reference. It's really suitable for a character named Goth. Okay, her levelling up, she's got only 3 ranks, and that's because her 4th quote-unquote rank is tied to her understanding track, and that's Fallout. Rotter, when she departs, she sets all her hit locations to 0, and when she's a returning survivor, she devours another and you suffer a -1 population. You don't get the benefits of the death principle, so she is a constant drain on your population. and the way that she fights is incredibly dangerous because she just basically doesn't use armor. And you'll notice as well she's got that -1. We turn back. Yeah, she's got that. There you go. That -1 evasion right here. So Goth's role is very much a damage dealer, and you need to protect her by keeping the focus onto other survivors if you're going to take her out to showdowns. More on that in the thoughts about the Ryusu section. She has her ranks here, and second rank and third. They do various things I'm not going to go into here, and fallout, which will trigger when she dies. This is something we do have to talk about for review purposes, so I'll leave it there. Let's go through the rest first. Let's look at her gear. So she comes with the common katana and the rapture bracelet. One moment to just complain that once again we have a katana without also the sword keyword. Katanas are swords. They really should have both keywords, especially because Katana Mastery is only currently available in the Sunstalker box. We should have something to do with katanas when we don't have it, and katanas are swords. You know, sorry if you're a big katana fan, but you know, katana means sword, and you can do many of the techniques with a katana that you can do with a normal sword. You know, of the same sort of weight and length, etc., etc. Rant aside now, because it's not really actually important, but I just think it would be nice. They do that with halberds and glaives. They make them spear axes. I do think that all katanas should just have the sword keyword to allow players to make use of them without having to do katana mastery, especially when you haven't got it. Stat profile: 2 speed, 6+ accuracy, 4 strength. Good stat profile for Lantern Year 4. Appreciate that. It's also got this extra ability, Silent Weapon. I wish they put that in italics just to kind of indicate, because it's more of a flavor text, but mechanically when you attack with this, you cancel all failure reactions during attack if you have no noisy gear in your grid. We play Kingdom Death, we don't use noisy gear, so this is almost always going to be have that ability on it. I think it's great. I think this is a really nice weapon. It's one of the better parts of Goth's design, and it holds really well with her because not getting hit by failure reactions means that she can not have to worry as much about taking hits when attacking, because as I said, her role is to deal damage and not get hit back. Other survivors need to take the hits instead. Then we have her Rapture Bracelet. This is an item, jewelry, bone, other. It provides 1 armor point to the head. Of course, you know, Goth has Rotter, so it's not really applicable to her. It's an accessory, so you can wear it in addition to other armor. And it has Selfish. The Selfish keyword or ability is not one we see too often. It denies you wearing any other or carrying any other gear with the other. So no other gear. No gear with the other keyword apart from the Rapture Bracelet. Its ability is at the end of your attack with a melee weapon. If you're standing, you make another attack with the same weapon. It gains slow for this attack, limit once per round. So tying that together, we've got Goth has +1 speed when she starts, so 3 speed with this, and then a second separate attack with this at 1 dice. This is really nice, and this is kind of this is the thing you're hoping to get at the end of Goth's entire story if you can. You can't take it off her while she's alive, but maybe you might get it when the story's finished. That's kind of what happens with some of the Wanderers. There's certain circumstances under which they leave their gear before departing the settlement. So solid weapon, great accessory, fantastic. Right, okay, on to the fighting art. This is Adrenaline. Goth will start with it. It's shuffled into your deck. Otherwise, you can't have it if you play with Ark Survivors, because it is a version of this. It is annoying that those are in that order. I'm going to fix that right now, because otherwise, there we go. Job done. You get once per showdown, you can choose to gain an extra movement, and you must use it for move and night, and then you can gain a lightning bolt that must be used to activate a weapon. So this gives you 1 act where you can have a double move and 1 act where you can have a double attack, and of course you can stack that with Rapture Bracelet as well. It's okay. There are better fighting arts. This is pretty much what's on Goth. Locked on Goth for the thing. I love the artwork, in particular with the little spiderlings. And I got more to talk about with it. We'll go through here. There's some nice aesthetic stuff they've done with this. Ultimately, there's worse fighting arts, but there's a lot better ones. Limitation on here is quite severe. It's understandable. They got to be careful with things like this, but yeah, it's not. It doesn't generate excitement, you know. It doesn't bring joy. It's just okay. Then we have the knowledge versions. There are 4 levels. We'll go through them here. So, starting one, this is adrenaline that she has. 2 lummies, like a reasonable cost for this. At the start of your act, you may gain 1 knight that may be used to move, limit once per showdown. So, as per usual, this is weaker than the fighting art, but this can grow. The observations go with wounding the monster. As we've just sort of looked at, Goth has a lot of capability to attack. She can do this in a showdown, maybe 2. Level 1 monsters, 6 wounds is a lot for one survivor to deal, but it is perfectly possible she could be doing that. So this is okay, it's not great, but it is fairly easy to progress. And it goes to Adrenaline 2, which the order's screwed up. Here it is, it's the yellow one. Increase to 4. Now it gives you 1 systemic pressure, which, as we talked about before, that means it's more likely for you to die. Luckily this isn't locked in permanently. If you get rid of this knowledge, you lose that. And now this works like the fighting art. So it gives the 2 options and you can pick each one once per showdown at the start of an act. Lot of advancements now. 12 total. I think it's 42 advancements overall, like 42 wounds to completely max out this fighting art knowledge. But yeah, this one takes a little bit longer. I think Goth usually can do this one and this one fairly well. Isn't it really annoying? I can't. Get out of here. There we go. I'm going to leave this in as well because it wasn't my fault they got all messed up in this order. Yeah, so this is okay. I think 4's a bit expensive for what it does. I value once per showdown options. They need to be really, really powerful for me to value them above passive or repeatables. So it's okay. Then we've got Adrenaline 3. So this is the one with the bonkers number of boxes. I think it's 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 24. You get plus 2 systemic pressure now, and you gain this 3rd option that gives you your choice extra of a knight or a lightning. So now you can have a move, and an attack, or you can have a move, attack bonuses through the showdown. It's solid enough. It's okay. Adrenaline 4, 7 Lumi points. For it. It gives you plus 3 systemic pressure. At the start of your act, you have all the previous options, plus you have gain either plus 1 strength token, plus 1 speed token, or add 3 armor to all hit locations. The last option of those 3 is by far and away the most interesting. 1 strength token is not worth as much as 15 armor points. 1 speed token also generally isn't worth as much. Frustratingly, it is difficult but not impossible to get Goth to this level. This is where she really starts to be able to do stuff, because sure, she loses all of her armor points on departing, but now she has a way to get herself a bunch at the start, like bang at the start of her first act in the showdown. She can get 15. Ultimately, slots are very tight when it comes to knowledges. You typically have 3 or 5 if you have romantic, but 5 is actually only 4 because to get the extra 2 slots you need another knowledge, blah blah blah. So regardless, like fighting arts, knowledge slots are tight and there's a lot of competition for them, and as you have control over what's going into the slots, and mostly via buying things at the forum or through the particular philosophies you're going through, it can be tough to justify something like this that says, hi, I do 4 things, all of which are they're not bad, but you also have to have plus 3 systemic pressure, and that's bonkers high. Thematically I get it, but mechanically, I'm super not interested in that. But I will say, on the aesthetics, this is really sweet. So you've noticed these are different colours. The colours here, blue, yellow, orange and black, are references to the tracks on Zombicide. If I remember correctly, it's for XP gaining, I think, which would make sense. I haven't really played Zombicide, so I'm not familiar with the mechanics, but I know that the track goes from blue to yellow and then to orange, and then right at the very end, when you're in like top end, it might be health even, there is a slight blackening of the bar in the last slot, but that is a visual reference to that system in Zombicide, which I like. I also really love the artwork showing her fighting spiderlings, because adrenaline is a fantastic ability if you've got Spidiculus, and it's really cool that they looked at this and went, yeah, it's helpful to have extra attacks to cut down spiderlings. That's a place players might use it, and they put it in here. Although I wish we had this many spiderling models in the Spidiculus set. Love this one. There's Mama Spidiculus at the top, getting what's coming to her. So love this artwork. That's all great. Knowledge, I think it's fine. We have 2 innovations. These come during the story. Goth Concealer, +1 survival limit's nice to have, and you have a chance of gaining tokens if you're not wearing armor at the head hit location. A bit sort of specific. It does link and work with Goth, because there's not much reason for her to wear armor on the head. There are things like vagabond armor, rolling armor, and then there's the various builds that don't want to use armor, like Marrowism survivors, etc. So it's not useful for every single survivor, but it does have potential. So that's nice. And the passive +1 survival limit, great. Goth's Grave, on the other hand, is it's a nightmare. So let's look at how you get it, and then let's talk about what it does and the one form of the mitigation you can do to deal with it. So if we get to max understanding, why did it jump? If you get to max understanding, then Goth dies. Like, she gets fully overtaken with her condition and just becomes one of the Walking Dead. If you got Cannibalize, then you 1d5 survivors of your choice are gonna get the irradiated impairment. If you have Graves, you're gonna get Goth's Grave. And on the surface, looking at these two, it's like, that's look, Goth's Grave is an innovation versus 5 irradiated survivors. This is the good option. This option is absolutely fine. This is horrendous, because Goth's Grave is nothing but an absolute hazard. So a noxious influence hangs over the settlement, and at the end of the settlement phase, a random survivor without the impairment gains the irradiated impairment. And basically, if you have the irradiated impairment on a 5 or less, you have to roll a dice during the update timeline step for each irradiated survivor. On a 5 or less, they die. So this is horrendous. This means for the rest of your settlement run, there's a 50% chance a survivor is going to drop dead. And if they don't drop dead that year, you have to keep rolling each subsequent year after that. And also, it's a random survivor, so it's not even like you can pick irrelevant survivors who are not going on hunts. This is a random survivor each time, so you have to deal with a randomization system to work out which survivor's being affected. And then if it's on one of your valuable survivors, then they're on a clock. And if they were trained in an important knowledge or weapon proficiency, then tough luck. They could just drop dead. So we just don't want this under any circumstances, and that means you should never play Goth with a Graves settlement, ever. If you're playing with Goth, you are picking Cannibalize, which I don't think is particularly interesting as a design. Thematically, I get it, but this Goth's Grave is so horrendously bad for you that you just shouldn't make the choice, which turns it into the worst kind of card design or mechanical design in any game, which is a trap. This is just a gotcha. This is, haha, you've messed up. You ruined your settlement, and you didn't know because you hadn't read this card in advance. You had no idea it was going to happen. And that's why I have no problem spoiling this, because this is the kind of design that is 1980s in mentality, and there's just no place for it in 2026 when I'm recording this. Really isn't. Other games have moved on from this kind of design because ultimately you can get caught by it once and you basically have to re-roll your settlement, because believe you me, trying to navigate through this is a nightmare. But there are a couple of other options. Number one is you could just go crazy and perform the settlement gain, population gain abuses, where you like stack up a load of resources of love juices, and then you massively hit face painting repeatedly, and then roll for a whole bunch of twins to have a big, huge burst of population. And if you've got a big population, there's less chance it'll go on a valuable survivor. It still could. I don't think that's particularly interesting play. It's not fun to do it. I don't do massive population buffers because I don't want to sit here breaking the mechanics of the game, because the game can't fight back if you do that. But also it's a lot of effort for something, and I don't think that's enjoyable. However, the Screaming Nucalope does provide a secondary ability that interacts with the Radiator, because the Nucalope can also irradiate you, and that is a circumstance under which I think you would play Goth. You would play Goth with Graves with the Screaming Nucalope, and that is at least somewhat interesting. Irradiate still is painful, but there's now an upside to it as well as this negative, and the negative is massively pushed down. So that's my recommendations. Is if you're playing with a Nucalope, you might be okay with Graves, but otherwise if you're playing with Goth, don't take Graves. Just don't do it. It's not worth it at all. I don't know why this doesn't have some other passive plus to at least try and tempt us, but yeah, it's just bad news. So that brings us on to the final sort of thoughts in respect to Goth. I think it's a little bit of a shame. When we look at the thematics, there's a story here, a tragic story being told that is quite interesting, and it ties very nicely into Zombicide, the setting it comes from, and I think that's the hit part. The thematics of this are really well done. The references to Zombicide are really well done. The references to Cure and everything, that's all great, and I think her mechanics on their own are interesting. She's doing something unusual and unique that's not particularly typical. But this gradually looming result of Fallout is not particularly enjoyable if you pick Graves, and the fact that it can just blindside you if you haven't looked ahead, I think is not good at all. It's just a trap, and that's not something I like seeing. So I've tried to say the best you can. You could run this with the Screaming Nucalope. Ultimately, the big problem is that Wanderers, the best thing that they bring is they bring a pre-assembled survivor to a settlement, and if you're in the early stages of a settlement, that could be really helpful, because you're not necessarily training for weapon proficiencies or developing knowledges yet. You're okay having this extra survivor come along who has a bit of their own kit and ability, and they can take up 25% of your team and help you generate resources. That's great. And Goth, for dealing damage, she's pretty good at it. She doesn't fall off particularly fast. You can get her an alternative weapon instead of a katana eventually. That all works. But she decimates your population with her rotter. She really does. And so that means her biggest benefit of turning up in Lantern Year 4 has now been negated. And when we look at Candy and Cola and Aeneas and the Death Drifter and the Preacher, who all also turn up early-ish in the settlement run, they don't ever harm your population in this way. So Goth becomes this survivor who could join the settlement, and kind of the best thing you can do is just sit her in the settlement, and you can use her to suck up deaths, because she'll just not, like, the first time she dies each lantern year, she doesn't cost that population. She just dies and gets a bit sad about it. And that's not, I mean, you could do it, but it's not really great. So ultimately, I think this is a interesting attempt. I think it's great storytelling, but I think as a physical sort of gameplay piece, this one is the weakest of all the Wanderers I've had a look at. Even weaker than Luck, and Luck mostly just is kind of irrelevant, but he's never actively harmful in any way, shape or form, and Goth can be and often is. So I would leave this one for people who want to turn the knobs to make Kingdom Death as difficult as possible. If you are excited about that concept of playing hard, super hard radiated mode, then this can do stuff for you. But if that's not the kind of mechanics you enjoy, and that's kind of, the vast majority of us want fair difficulty, not something you're just beaten over the head with every year and you can't do anything about, maybe you just don't bother with this one. So I can't really give this a recommendation compared to any of the other Wanderers. If you're a fan of it, if you like the model and the story, and you like this concept of hard mode or trying to play with her, then great. I feel like I've already exhausted everything to do with her, and I played just 4 campaigns with her in, and used her in all the different ways, and I kind of felt I'd seen everything already. Candy and Cola, on the other hand, I kind of don't ever want to take out of my campaign. But I will say one final thing, which is just a thought of something that could have been a bit better, is if each of these Wanderers came with their own randomization card, and at the start of a campaign you would shuffle them up and draw X number of Wanderer cards, and that's the ones you'd have. Then something like this would be interesting, because you're being offered a puzzle of here's our randomized quarries, pillars, blah blah blah, and Wanderers, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it. That's an area where this could have been a bit more expanded, but we don't have that kind of card in here. Maybe Campaigns of Death or the shop will offer a future sort of pack of randomise your Wanderers, and I really hope they do, because then there's a bit more of a reason to have this mixed in with the rest for people who come back to the game over and over again and want to beat a randomised configuration. So there we are. That's it. That's nearly 40 minutes talking about Goth, which is more than I planned to do. But yeah, just like a lukewarm sort of shrug and a half, like, well, there's some nice parts, but if you're on a budget, Candy's better, Aeneas is better, Death Drifter is better, and The Preacher is better. So this would be the 5th out of 5 Wanderers I'd recommend buying right now. And that's it. So thank you to my patrons for supporting, thank you to you for watching, and I'll be back with some stuff to talk about the Smog Singers, and we can talk about Noisy again, and I'm so excited. Happy hunting.